Todd-U.
Welcome to Todd-U. Today we're going to talk about this 13-speed Road Ranger and just talk about the different things that are unique about this transmission, how they work, and how the power flow goes from the flywheel into the input shaft and gets to the tail shaft and then out onto the rear end and putting the power to the ground. First off, this thing has 3 ranges. The ranges are low, intermediate, and direct. So when we're in low, what we got going on is we only use 3 gears. This basically is a 5-speed transmission with 3 ranges. Now you'd think that would be, 5 times 3 would give you 15. But due to the gear overlap that's built into this transmission, in low you only use 1st through 3rd for your low range. If you look at the input of this is a slide collar transmission, air operated by this slave cylinder that goes down here and directs air to my intermediate cylinder and my high-low range. They're all operated by this 3-position valve here that directs air through these spaghetti lines to make this happen. One of these. Need to put a shout out to my buddy Jeff Brown for donating this transmission so we can use it. Why do we need transmissions? Well, if you think about it, if you ever rode a bicycle that only had 1 gear and then you come into a hill situation and you start to have to pump harder, that's one of the reasons we need gears. We need to have gears so we can have torque advantage for pulling things, going up inclines, and we need to have transmissions for speed advantage so we can get on down the road. All right, so our input on this, our engine is turning in the clockwise position like this. So when I look at a transmission, I want to try to identify how it works. When I look down inside here, I want to try to identify where my gears are, where reverse is, and things like that. So when you look down in here, I can see that I've got a reverse idler down here in this lower part of this transmission. The reason you need to have that reverse idler is when you're meshing gears together, the odd number will turn opposite the input and the even number will turn the same direction as the input when we're talking about the meshes themselves. So let's do reverse first. My input's going to come in here. It's going to be transferred over here to this counter shaft. So that would be 1 mesh. This counter shaft is all connected together all the way through. And then I go down here and I go to my reverse idler. That would be 2 meshes. And then the reverse idler gear meshes to this gear. So this is going to give me reverse because that gives me, see how that thing turns opposite of everything else going on here? That gives me reverse. So I would lock this collar into my reverse idler or into my reverse gear, transmitting my power in, going out here to my range transmission. If I want to go to 1st gear, I will go here. If you think about how your 10-speed bicycle works, or your 15 or 18-speed bicycle, however you want to look at it, you've got 3 ranges on a 15-speed bike on your pedal crank assembly, and then you've got 5 speeds behind you on your rear wheel. If you kind of understand how that works, you ought to be able to figure out how this works. I have a input here coming to here, and then I've got this is going to be driving my 1st gear. So I'm going to have a small driver, a large driven. That's going to give me torque advantage to give me 1st. When I shift into 2nd, my input's still going to come from here to my counter shaft over to here, and this is a little bit larger driving gear, driving a little bit smaller gear. That's going to give me 2nd. That's going to give me a little bit more of a speed advantage. When I go to 3rd, I would have this input to here, come on over, comes to here, and now I have a little larger driving gear, right, to a little smaller driven gear. Still gives me my speed advantage. This is where I'm going to be getting low for my low range. Now, what happens different is in the back of the box, and I'll show you that in a minute. We just keep repeating these gears in this transmission. So when we're in low, we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to switch to my intermediate. When I switch to intermediate, that's going to change my range transmission back here at the back. And I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to go back. So this is going to be 4th gear, this will be 5th gear, this will be 6th gear, this will be 7th, and this will be 8th. When I shift to my high range or direct, I'm going to go back again. So this is going to be 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. All right, so we're going to start off. This is my 3 different ranges here. I have low, intermediate, and direct. Direct is really like an overdrive, and you'll see that in a second. Coming out of my transmission, I got 2 different ways to have input into my 3 ranges back here. I can come through the center here, or I can go use this gear and use around the outside. When I'm in low, I'm going to use this gear on the outside. It's going to turn these counter shafts. These counter shafts have a gear here, a gear here, and a gear back here in the back. When I'm in low, I'm turning this here. I'm transmitting power from my small driver to my large driven, giving me the mechanical advantage of low. When I go into intermediate, I am going to be coming straight through here. This lever is going to come out and engage that, and then my power is going to go straight through the middle, giving me intermediate. When I go into what they call direct, now I'm going to be using my outside gear again, moving my counter shaft, transmitting power from here to this gear back here, which is still going to be a pretty large driver driving something that's just a little bit smaller, giving me that speed advantage that I'm looking for. All right, so we just got done looking at the 13-speed Road Ranger. Now we're going to go up a notch. Transmissions just keep getting more and more complicated. This is a quad range, John Deere quad range. You'd find this in a 30 series or 40 series John Deere tractor. This has 4 different ranges instead of the Road Ranger had 3. This has got A, B, C, and D. That's all controlled on the lower shaft. So that whole lower shaft is where I get my ranges. On my upper shaft, I've got a low pinion and a high pinion. I also have my reverse back here. And this top shaft is pretty important. I get low pinion, high pinion, neutral, and reverse. So this is where all that magic happens, is right here on this shaft. The reason we talked about low pinion, high pinion on this quad range, we got something that's up here ahead of it. This is a planetary gear set that is operated by hydraulics, a 2-position valve here that either locks or unlocks this carrier. When we're using the planetaries, and we use them for a mechanical advantage to give me a low torque in it. So when I'm using my planetary set, bringing it in here, and I'm on my low pinion, that gives me 1, that gives me first gear. When I slap this lever forward and I'm not using my planetary and I'm going straight through, that's going to give me a speed advantage, and that's going to give me second. Here on my high pinion, this gives me 3rd and 4th. So same thing, when I'm in 3rd, I'm using my planetary as a torque advantage, and when I'm in 4th, I'm going straight through and I'm not using that as a carrier. My reverse back here again, remember that secret that I told you earlier about the meshes? If you ever get confused about how something works, you got to try to figure out what gear's touching what to get to the output. You've got an input, and our outputs are pinion that's back here, down here at the bottom, that goes right to our ring gear. Where on the Road Ranger, we went out the back and then we hooked to a drive shaft to go to the rear end. This one here, right next door. So let's go ahead and go through let's go through a gear. So if I'm in or my low pinion, So my transmission is bringing my input into here. It's going to go to this gear right here on this counter shaft. The counter shaft is then going to transmit power down to low, which would be my A, would be my large gear on the bottom, and then it is going to transmit power to my pinion, give me down to my final drives. When I want second, I just go ahead and flip that lever. Now I'm going to go straight through. There's my speed advantage. If I want to go ahead and go into third, fourth, I'm going to have to physically stop this tractor. You're not supposed to be shifting this stuff on the go. Like the Road Ranger, you shift on the go. Your tractor kind of needs to be stationary as you go. So if I go to my high pinion, I come in here to my counter shaft, and if I'm going to be on A again, comes over to here, from here down, that's locked up down there, goes my pinion. When I want fourth, slap this over, bang, there I go. Works that way through this whole section here. All we're doing is transmitting power from our low pinion or our high pinion to our counter shaft. Depending on what range we're in down below, gives us our speed or torque advantage. Going up another notch from the quad range, this is a power shift transmission. This is a power shift 8-speed power transmission out of a 4020. Here we're locking up these clutch diffs. We're locking up these clutch diffs on drums like this that are being done by hydraulics. The hydraulic pressure comes in here, 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 and here, and then depending on where the location of where the input is, we're going to lock up my B, my B2, my B3, my B4, or my C3. Over here I got my PTO and C2 and C1. And it takes at least 2 clutch packs to be locked up to make this thing go into a particular gear, and depending on what ones are locked up is going to change the torque advantage or the speed advantage. These are all operated by planetary gear sets and hydraulic clutch packs. Gets a little bit more complicated, but it doesn't even look like a transmission. So, hope this helps.
Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope you've learned something new. If you would like to learn more about what it takes to be a technician, or just how something works in general, please feel free to check out some of my other videos. I'm Todd with Todd-U, and I will see you later.